yourself a little slice of moonlight. Spread it gently on a lonely country road, and the tender charms of somebody's arms.
Well, hey guys, welcome back to the channel, Paladin and Piper. Yeah, hope you enjoyed the intro, although probably many of you have already clicked off by now. But yes, I am back in Codger Garage because it is humid and my allergies are still kicking my booty, and I would be sneezing and snorting and blowing my nose through this whole video. So I'm in the garage. So today I thought I would tell you a story. Tramper Scott did a video about his journey to Mount Rogers in the Grayson Highlands of Virginia. And I thought I would tell you that story over a pipe. Yes, so also I hope you guys enjoyed. That was a little bit of the only 4 leather wrapped Medicos I have. This one was recently given to me from the Southland Piper, Tim, and I'm very appreciative of it. And this is my inaugural smoke, and in it I have decided to have trout string. Kind of a last minute decision. I was gonna have velvet, but so for many years, I was an avid backpacker, climber, camper, and the like. And I also drinking a little licorice tea tonight in the mason jar. Good stuff. So another friend of mine, which we'll just call him Doc, and that's because he actually is a doc. And so he and myself and Hondo, which you guys have seen Hondo on the channel, grew up together, and he moved away to California when we were young, and then came back for medical school. And during medical school, he had a bit of a bout with depression that really took a toll on him, and yeah, we were worried about him for a while. So one of the ways that I tried to help him was get him outdoors, get him some fresh air, some vitamin D, and help him that way as best I could. So Doc and I, we would climb, and we hiked, and we camped, and in fact I almost died with him. I've told that story on here before, and if you guys are really interested, I'll tell it again, because I know I have a lot more subscribers now than when I did, but that's back on my channel. But anyway, so we decided before he left for Colorado, which is where he lives now, and he was going to become a physician with Kaiser Permanente out there, that we would do one last backpack together. And I had heard about the Grayson Highlands from a backpacking YouTuber. I'm trying to remember his name. Not Frozen. He did the Appalachian Trail, but there was another guy. Anyway, he always does cheeseburgers at the end of his videos. But anyway, and you know, there. If you guys are not familiar with the Grayson Highlands, there are wild ponies out there. And Scott, you probably have ran into a few or whatever. So I asked Doc, I said, hey, let's do this. Well, let's do a loop. And he was like, oh yeah, totally. I'll do it. Let's do it. So, you know, I was under the assumption, and this will come back to bite me, that Doc had done, because Doc went out and his sister was already in Colorado, and he had spent some time out there before he decided he was going to be a physician at Kaiser Permanente. So he had told me he'd done the maroon bells in Colorado. Now, if you guys are not familiar with the maroon bells in Colorado, they call them the deadly bells, because people literally, they die all the time up there. And now, I've never done the maroon bells, so I am under the assumption that Doc has done some pretty good backpacking now, like more so than what he and I did together. So I conjure up this 20-mile loop, and it was the Virginia Highlands Horse Trail, the Mount Rogers Trail, the AT was a piece of it. Anyway, and it made this loop, okay? And so it was about a 20-mile loop, and I figured, okay, we could probably get that done in 4 or 5 days. No big deal, okay? Looked at the weather. At this point in time, the weather looked like it was supposed to be pretty good, so we picked whatever week and we went. So we get to Massey Gap, which is, you can enter Massey Gap, or you can enter at, I think Elk Grove was what it was called. We get to Damascus in Virginia, and the little shop there, the guy was like, you need to really go in at Elk Grove. He's like, it's a lot steeper climb, but it's much more beautiful and quicker, and you can hit your trail, kind of, there's a little spur trail that goes in that way. So we did that. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful country. Now, one other hobby that Doc has, he still does, is photography. And so he actually brought a lot of photography equipment. And he, at the time, was probably, I'm not good with weights, but I would say he was probably in the 280-ish pounds range. He'd gained a lot of weight during medical school. And, I was more in the 190, 210s-ish at that time. And so one thing I did for him, we hammock camp, and I gave him my ultralight setup of my hammock so that he could have that and at least be lighter with him, because he wanted to carry his camera equipment. So it was cool. I wish you could have seen that off camera. I got a little fan going, and it was spinning a smoke ring. So anyway, so we start up Elk Grove, and no big deal. Just chug along. Beautiful views. I mean, just beautiful up there. So we get like, it's been so many years, maybe 8 miles in. It was beautiful, kind of, we weren't completely on a ridge top, but we were up there. And Doc gets his camera equipment out, sets everything up. I mean, he's taking great pictures. I mean, he's got that, I mean, and he didn't spare any expense. Like, he had the digital camera and all the whole thing, right? But one thing I've learned, I've spent a lot of time in the mountains, especially when you're on the peaks of mountains, is that you pay attention to the clouds, and you watch them, and you pay attention to the wind, and you pay attention to, sometimes animals around you, okay? Well, through the whole hike, we had seen horses, and some of them come right up to you, they want food or whatever, and some of them will walk with you. I mean, it was pretty cool. But I noticed, like, up on some of the ridge tops around us, some of the horses were kind of like bedding down underneath the trees, and it was probably 5 o'clock, maybe. It wasn't real late. And I look out over this expanse where he's taking all these pictures, and it's kind of getting pretty cloud thick. And I'm like, Doc, we should probably get in the hammocks. And he's like, just a few more pictures. I said, Doc, we should probably get in the hammock. He's like, okay. He's like, well, you got to show me how to set it up really quick. Okay, so if you've ever hammock camped, you've got a couple of different options. You can have basically a tarp on top of you. That's like a big blanket. And so your hammock's laying this way, and a tarp is laying over you. Okay, which was a setup that I had, which is honestly probably a little bit heavier than a tent, if not the same weight. But you got better coverage in a storm. Or you can do what's called a catenary cut, where it's cut on an angle, and it's almost like an isosceles. So when you lay in your hammock, you have to lay in line with that cut of that tarp, because if you don't, you end up lying like this. So it cuts the one way and the hammock is the other. Now I told him this, and again, but the setup of the catenary cuts plus the ultralight fabric that he had and all that stuff, I mean, it was a lot lighter. So I was telling him, hey, Ty, whatever you do, lay in this direction. Okay. So we get into hammocks, and I hear the first tickle of rain. And if you've ever been out in the backcountry with rain, it always sounds louder than what it is. A little more tickle, a little more trickle, a little bit louder. And then the first boom happened. I was like, okay, we're in for a storm. You could hear some horses neighing in the distance. Then happened the first wave, and there were 3 of these waves, okay? So it was wrath of God, biblical proportions, the amount of rain that was dumping onto us. I, at one point, looked out of my hammock, which was swaying violently with the trees, and there was literally a river running underneath my hammock. Had I not had my pack tied to the tree, which was waterproof, it would have been gone. No joke. Superstorm, okay? And it just kept pelting and pelting and pelting and pelting and pelting and pelting. Okay. Now, Doc is probably, you know what? I mean, my garage is probably 23 feet maybe in length. I don't know. I'm really bad with distances, but, and I would say he is no more than 10 to 11 feet away from me, because we anchored off of a center tree as well. And I'm screaming to be like, are you okay? And he's like, no. And I'm like, what's wrong? He's like, I'm drowning in water. And I'm like, oh, because he laid, he was a big boy. He couldn't get, he laid like this. He couldn't get in line with the catenary cut of the tarp. So I'm like, all right, man, I'll get out and help you. So I unzip my hammock, and I'm trying to come out of the tarp, and I mean, it's just like everything is whipping and throwing. I mean, there's tree branches. It was horrible. So we get I had get him out, and of course we're just getting pummeled. And I get the hammock, which was basically a banana boat. I mean, it was literally full of water. And of course the sleeping bag's wet. It was a synthetic bag, so it still had some insulation, but it was wet. And I tossed the water out, and I'm like, dude, you gotta lay in line, get in line. And he's like, okay, get back in your hammock, just get back, I'll be fine. I'm like, okay. So I get back in to my hammock, and I mean, I was getting motion sick. It was so bad. I mean, it was like you're going like this and up and down and up and down and up. Well, then my tarp blows. Well, the 2 lines that I had it staked out with blow. So it's just pelting in. So I get back out, stake those back down, and I'm like, all right, it's got to calm down at some point, you know. And I don't know if it was like an hour later, it seemed like it kind of had come to a lull. And I'm like, okay, all right, cool. Well, I had some Benadryl in my shirt pocket. Because I was thinking, oh, I'll take some, you know, but I didn't get a chance to. So I'm like, well, screw that. I'm going to take some Benadryl. So I'm just going to sleep till the morning. Take my 2 Benadryl. Well, about after I swallowed those pills, round 2 comes. Yeah. Round 2 was like Mike Tyson got pissed. But the craziest thing was, on round 2, I could hear the horses. It was like they were closer, and they were neighing and kicking and you know, doing all this stuff. And I hear Doc go, "Oh shit, what was that?" And I'm like, "What's going on?" He's like, "I think a horse just ran into me with its..." Of course, like, I'm halfway starting to nod off because I'm so tired. And I'm halfway laughing, and I'm halfway in the back of my mind going, "That's too many halves." But anyway, I'm going, oh, dude, if we ever get out of this. So I said, well, just stay where you are, man. It'll be fine. They'll move, you know. So at some point in there, I fall asleep. Yeah. And then round 3 came, and round 3 was like, you know, Minnie Mouse. I mean, it was rain, but it wasn't as bad. And then it cleared out. Well, in the morning, he looked like a drowned rat. He got out of that sleeping bag, and he was like, "Oh my God, I can't do this." And I was like, "All right," you know. And he was just soaked. Everything was soaked. Of course, a lot of my stuff was soaked. And he's like, "I think we need to turn back." And he's like, "Oh, I gotta tell you something else." And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "I didn't exactly do the maroon bells." "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, we just kind of hiked in a few miles and then like went back out." I was like, "Oh, okay." Well, I said, "Do you care if I just hike up a little bit? I just want to see kind of what's on the other end of this ridge line, and then we'll go back. We'll just head back the way we came." He's like, "Yeah, that's fine." Oh, about maybe a couple hundred feet from where our camp was, because I hadn't hiked any further that night that we camped there. It was an Appalachian Trail shelter with fresh water, and yeah, he could have killed me. He's like, "You didn't see that?" I'm like, "It wasn't on the map. I didn't walk down there." I even had a nice little pit toilet. He was so mad. So we went back to Damascus. Beautiful little trail town, by the way. And we stayed at the old mill there. I think it's the Old Stone Inn or the Old Mill Inn or the whatever, bed and breakfast. And hung all our stuff up to dry. It took 2 days, and we were there for, you know, we just stayed there. And then what we did was we went back in at Massey Gap, and we hiked up, you know, just to like the different areas or whatever, and did day hikes and stuff like that. But yeah, I remember thinking in the middle of that storm, I was like, man, I pissed off the Lord something fierce. But it always seemed that Doc and I got into the most harrowing adventures together. Hondo's adventures and I are always just annoying, and like usually because I overestimate what he has, like when we got stuck at the hill on the hill at the farm. Whereas Hondo and I, Doc and I, we yeah, well, I mean, quite frankly, the other bad time was we almost fell off a cliff together, so there's that. All right, guys, 20 minutes, more than that with the intro. So if you stayed this long, congrats. I appreciate it. I don't make these long videos that often. So anyway, I'm gonna finish my trout stream here in the Medico Crest Lovat leather wrapped Meerschaum line. And yeah, we will see you very soon. Take care, guys.